Hey Google, what's on my schedule today?
Sure, Timothy. Today, there was only one thing on your calendar. It started at 9 a.m. The title is Shave.
Oh. Hello, hello. Long time no vlog. Things have changed. So as you can tell, for one, I haven't vlogged in such a long time, and two, I have this hairy thing on my face. Oh. So for the past month, I've been bombarded with question after question of, Tim, are you okay? Tim, are you financially stable? Tim, do I need to feed you? Tim, where are you sleeping? Tim, are you okay? I am okay. As you can tell, I'm 100% okay. I just have this thing on my face. To explain myself, today's vlog is going to be a little bit more of a PSA, or kind of just an announcement, or kind of like a informative thing of why I decided to do No Shave November for the first time in my life. Hopefully this video will explain itself. If not,
1 hour later.
So first of all, my understanding of No Shave November was not a very positive one. I always thought it was simply just a trend. People just did it for the heck of it. There was no meaning behind this trend. And I thought it was just one of those silly things where kids could post for 1 month, oh, No Shave November, or hashtag No Shave November, or whatever it is. And so I never really got into it. I did grow out my beard every once in a while, but it wasn't because of No Shave November. It was mostly because I was just trying to look older. I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, and when I looked up No Shave November, and I found out that there's a story of how it started when a family of 8, they lost their father to colon cancer. And so because of that, they started to raise awareness by not shaving, not cutting hair, and taking that money and using it towards research, or just for awareness of cancer in general. And I think it was originally colon cancer, but I could be wrong. But now it's kind of just in general for cancer awareness. And so I thought this would be meaningful to me if I did it. As many of you probably don't know, I have lost my grandmother to cancer, to brain cancer, in 2012. And that patch of my life in 2011, 2012, during that time frame, was probably the craziest time of my life. It was the first time I had truly experienced in my adult age a loss of someone so close that I grew up with, that took care of me. And so when I found out that No Shave November was this awareness for cancer, I figured, you know what, like, why not? People are going to ask me, people are going to say, Tim, you look like a hobo, like, what in the world are you doing? And I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to share my take on cancer and cancer awareness. The story begins in the fall of 2011. My grandparents wanted to go to Seattle, where the rest of our family is, and they wanted to go visit family for the Christmas season. And so for my father, my mother, my family living up in Alaska with them, we said, okay, that's fine. We see them all the time. We didn't suspect anything was wrong. We just suspected that it was just going to be another trip. I remember in December going to their house with my sisters, and I remember saying, oh, have a safe trip. We'll miss you. Take care. Have fun. We'll see you again after, the holiday season. And so they went, and we didn't suspect anything. However, when my grandparents got to Seattle and they met up with other family, they started to notice that, oh, grandma is not the same. Grandma is not the way that she used to be. Maybe we should go get her checked out. And for me, this part was kind of the scary thing, because we were always with my grandma, so we never suspected that anything was wrong. But because my relatives had not seen her for so long, they suspected that grandma was not the same. Because of that, they decided to take her to the hospital a few days before Christmas, actually, and they decided to just get her checked out. And to take out all the details and stuff, pretty much what happened was is they found out that she had a brain tumor and that they needed to do surgery or it would be too late. And initially my grandpa was very scared and he was very against it because he was not sure what was going on. However, they decided, relatives, and they pushed through with the surgery pretty much. And so my grandma went through the surgery. They supposedly completely removed the tumor, but then she's unconscious for, I think it was 7-8 hours. And my grandfather wouldn't leave the hospital. He wouldn't leave her side. He started to get angry because he thought that the doctors had pretty much just killed her because she was not responding. She was just unconscious, just kind of laying there. And at that point during my break, I was just at home doing my thing, and it was hard for us to swallow back at home, back in Alaska. We had a hard time believing that it actually happened, and we weren't sure, like, wait, what's going on? Is this actually happening, or is, like, it's not a big deal and she's gonna come back on the plane like we imagined her to come back? Pretty much because my grandfather would refuse to leave the hospital. He wasn't eating well, he wasn't sleeping, he was really doing nothing. My grandma did eventually gain consciousness and she kind of woke up, but she wasn't moving, she wasn't really doing anything, and my grandpa was very torn apart because of that. And he, like I said, he wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't shower, he wouldn't eat, he would just sit by her side. And because of that, my parents and I, we decided, okay, maybe we need to go down. So my older sister and I decided to go down to Seattle. And so we went down to Seattle, and we pretty much, sat by my grandma's side. And I remember when I first saw my grandma, I was in disbelief, because a few weeks back we had just seen her just totally fine, walking around, grabbing her suitcase, trying to give us some food when we went to go visit her. It was just unreal that my grandma was laying in bed with a tube in her nose, and I was shocked. I'd never imagined anything like this happening. And so my sister and I, we pretty much stayed at the hospital. We allowed my grandpa to rest a little bit, to get some sleep, to eat some food. And so we kind of just were there for pretty much the majority of the winter break. Day by day, my grandma did get better. She was making a slow recovery. She was starting to gain consciousness. I remember, I wish I had taken videos and stuff, but I guess at that time, you're not really thinking about, oh, well, I'm going to make a vlog, 6-7 years down the road. I should record all this or document it. But I remember moments and huge steps in, like, when she would be able to swallow her food and, like, start to eat solid foods. I remember, getting those x-rays taken and just watching her being able to eat again. These small little things made everything so much more exciting, and we were, or at least I was extremely confident that my grandma was going to get better, and then we would have our grandma again. So I'm still in school at this point, and so after the winter break is over, I decide to come back home, and school's about to start pretty soon. And then my grandpa, he doesn't want to continue with the rehab in Seattle, and he actually wanted to go to Korea. So my grandma at this point is, like, fully aware of what's going on, and she's able to walk again and eat again, and she's just pretty much who she used to be. And so my grandparents decided, oh, well, we want to go to Korea to do the rehab for the rest of the recovery. And at this point, I was kind of in a bind whether or not to go to school or to go to Korea. Because my grandpa had asked me, he was like, I know that I'm Korean, I could do it myself, but because Korea is so different now, I want you to come. So I was very torn apart, because it was either I continue with my education or I go and spend time with my grandma, grandpa, help them with the recovery, not knowing what was going to happen. And so, of course, I opted to go to Korea with my grandparents, and so I took a break from school at that point, and this was now the beginning of 2012. So now it's the beginning of 2012, it's the spring, I'm in Korea with my grandmother and my grandfather. And from Seoul, which is kind of the top part of South Korea, we go down to Yeosu, South Korea, which is down towards the south, the bottom of South Korea. And there's a rehab center or a recovery center for patients. And we first go there, and we think we're going to be staying there. So while I'm there, I have it set up that I stay at a church because the room that we had gotten was too small for 3 people. So I ended up becoming somewhat of a missionary during that time in Korea. So I worked at a small local elementary school, 2 of them actually, and then I also helped out with the church, baking bread, going door-to-door visitations, just helping the community, helping with their garden, doing special musics, and all that jazz. I pretty much had that set up for the time being in Korea when the hospital there said that my grandmother's condition was too severe, and so it was a little unstable, and they said it would be better if she moved up to a different hospital that did the same stuff, just they would be more ready and prepared if anything happened. So I didn't want to break any deals or any ties with the church that I had promised, so my grandparents went up, I stayed, and I went to go visit them every other weekend and help them out and checked up on them, made sure everything was okay. To keep a very long story short, what happened is she got better to the point where they decided to come back down to the Yeosu area because it's very pretty, it's beautiful. If you haven't seen pictures of the area, it's just a magnificent place by the ocean. It's just really beautiful. And so they come back down, and literally, my grandma at this point now is like, she's going up mountains. She's eating, lots of food, and she's gaining weight, and she's looking so much more healthier now. And we were very optimistic. I was sending pictures to my family. I was just really excited to see my grandma get so much more better. And, I was praying, and everything was working out. And literally, I think within a week of her coming down to Yeosu, back to the original hospital we were supposed to be at, she started to vomit so much, and she started to not respond, and everything just went downhill in a moment of hours. I remember being called in the middle of the night with my grandpa, frantically, just not sure what was going on, and he said, "You need to come now." And so I remember, because I didn't have a vehicle, I didn't have any mode of transportation, I remember just jumping into the car with the pastor, waking up the pastor and asking him to drive up to the hospital, which was uphill about 5-10 minutes away, not too far. And we're zooming up the hill, and we get there, the ambulance is already there, they're loading her up and getting her on the stretcher, and I see my grandpa just sitting there in complete disbelief. And for me, it's the same thing. I'm just, what was going on? I just saw grandma earlier this morning. She was okay, she was eating, she was walking around, enjoying everything the hospital had, and all of a sudden, just downhill like that. They transport her to a larger hospital in the city, because we're in the countryside at this point, but transfer her to a bigger hospital in the city, and they do some x-rays, and they find out that the tumor had come back, and it was in multiple different places now. And so we were stuck with the situation of, what do we do now? And for me, being a Korean American whose Korean isn't the best, and especially when it comes to like medical terms and the financial aspect of it, I was completely lost. And I felt so hopeless and so helpless because I didn't know what to do. So we're here in this hospital in Yeosu, and we don't know what to do. We don't know what's going on. The doctor says that, the tumor has spread in multiple different places now, and the condition doesn't seem to be too good. And the problem is we, at this point, we're not sure what we can do in Korea. They say that we can do surgery, but for one, we're American citizens. My grandpa and my grandmother are both American citizens. They don't have any insurance in Korea, and so we run into this wall of, what do we do? If we stay in Korea and try doing a surgery, it's going to cost us an arm and a leg. She's at this point where she's too weak, and things are not getting better. And so we have to make the decision. Do we stay in Korea any longer, or do we fly her out as soon as possible? Now, this is all just very last minute, within the day, within a span of like 2-3 days. And we come up to the decision that she needs to go back to the States, or come back here to the States. And so I have to tell, the school that I'm helping, the church that I'm helping, hey, I'm so sorry, but we got to go back to America, and I can't stay here any longer. So go home, I pack up my stuff, and we can't fly her from Yosu to Seoul. We can't take a bus or like a train, so we have to take an ambulance. So we pretty much paid for an ambulance to drive us from Yosu all the way up to Seoul, and actually all the way to the airport. So we bought these tickets, and we get into this ambulance, we load my grandma up, and I have all my stuff, and we get to the airport, and just the whole trip there itself was so petrifying and scary, as I sit there with my bags and my passport in my hand, just looking at my grandpa and my grandma. Just, we were all in disbelief at that point. We had no idea what to expect. And 3.5 hours later, from the bottom of South Korea to the airport, international airport, we tried to get her on the plane, and they look at her and they say, we're not going to take her on the plane. There's no way. And so obviously, her condition is not doing good at all. She's not able to sit up. She's not able to even sit in a wheelchair. And so they said that they wouldn't take that chance. And so pretty much we end up getting admitted to a hospital in Seoul. My aunt from America, my father's side, she comes to Korea. My mother, she flies out to Korea, and now we're trying to figure out, like, how do we get her back home? Because there's no way, like, if anything, her condition was at that point where she wasn't gonna make it, and doing a surgery in Korea was unrealistic. If anything, something had to happen in the States. And so we had to get this medical clearance, and eventually what happened is we had to buy multiple seats on a plane. We had to hire a doctor. Long story short, once again, we got her back to the States. We got her back to Seattle. I stayed behind for a few extra days so that I could go back and make sure everything is all cleared up, and I explain myself, and I make sure that they're aware of what's going on. And so I leave and get to Seattle a little bit after my grandma and my grandpa get back. And it happened so quickly that I was honestly stressed out to the point where I wasn't sure what to do. And even now, just retelling the story, just thinking about all of that happened so instantly, it was scary, and that was probably one of the times in my life that I felt so much fear and helplessness, and what do I do now, kind of thing. So now my grandmother's back in the States, I'm back in the States now at this point, and it's the first week of May, and my grandma, instead of going to a hospital, we decided to put her at a place. I'm not sure what it's called. I almost said hospice, but I think it's just, it's a place where people pass away peacefully, kind of thing. So it's just kind of that last final stage kind of place. Very homey atmosphere. And I just remember sitting in that room, and as relatives came pouring in, just so devastated, and just my grandfather as well. I just seeing the sorrow and the pain and the hurt on his face, and seeing my father and my sisters and everyone, I felt there was a part of me that felt like I had let my family down. I had let them down. I was going to Korea to help my grandmother and my grandfather, and helping my grandmother to recover ultimately. And there was this dream and this thing of, we're gonna bring her back home healthy, better, the grandma that we always remember. And I come back, and that's not the case. And so for me, it was hard for me to just sit there, because I felt this huge responsibility and this burden that, oh, I just felt really bad, you know. I just remember it was in the evening, it was late night, and May 8th, 2012, she passed away. And I look back at it and I think about everything that had happened. I remember just laying there on the motel bed, just wondering, like, what if, you know? What if all of this didn't happen? What if, like, there was preventative measures taken? What if we had known earlier that this was happening? Maybe we could have done a more naturalistic path. Maybe we could have done something more for my grandmother instead of everything that we had gone through. I think one of the best treatments ever, and I strongly believe in this, the best treatment for anything, any pain, any suffering, any hurt, any disease that we may have, is prevention. And yes, I know that there's certain things that we can't prevent. You know, some things are just passed on from generation to generation, and so it's something that we can't really combat. But prevention, just getting your checkups, just eating healthy, getting all your nutrients, and living a healthy, holistic life, I feel like are ways that we can combat these diseases. And so No Shave November for me this month especially has so much more meaning, especially after finding out what it was all about. There's a lot of things that I do regret, if anything. You know, obviously there's relationships that I regret, there's decisions in my life that I regret. But probably the biggest things that I regret is the things that I wasn't able to do for my grandmother. There's many times when I was living alone, when I moved out after high school, where she would bring me food and leave food at my apartment. And I feel bad because I would always look at it and it'd be, you know, really healthy stuff, and I'd just throw it away or just let it rot and then throw it away. And I would just eat junk food, and there was a lot of things I didn't really appreciate from my grandmother, and I regret it. You know, I didn't really show my appreciation for her. And so through this, you know, No Shave November thing, you know, people were like, "Yeah, Tim, you look like a hobo. Like, why are you doing that?" You know, and yeah, and, you know, I do look like a hobo, and I do look terrible, and you know, I look messy. I look like I don't care for myself. But if I am able to tell others, you know, for one, to love your family, to appreciate them every day, to take a time to hear their story, if you're not close with your grandparents or even with your parents, to get to know them better, to really embrace and value the people in your life. And cancer sucks, you know, it's a scary thing. And so the second thing that I want to raise awareness for that kind of drives me is to take care of your health. You know, if you know me, like, I'm not the healthiest person. Like, I really ain't. I'm not. I'm terrible when it comes to food. I eat a lot. I'm a pig. But as I grow older, I make these more conscious efforts to eat healthier, to live healthier, to stay on top of things. If I feel like my body is wrong, to, you know, do some research or to get checked out, you know. So I realize this video is really long, and there's a lot of details that I took out intentionally so that it's not any longer. I feel like I could tell this story, like the full story, maybe in an hour or two. But the two things that I hope you take away from me doing this No Shave November thing is, one, to embrace your family, to embrace the people around you, the people that you love or the people that love you, to embrace them, to show that you really care, to appreciate them. Because things can happen in an instant and you never know. It would be better to show that appreciation than to regret it for the rest of your life that you weren't able to do anything for that person. And the second one would be to take care of yourself, to live a healthy life, to eat well, to sleep well, to not push yourself when your body can't handle it. If you can't take care of your health, you know, all of that means absolutely nothing. And so really take the time to care for yourself. Health is wealth. And when they say that, that's so real. And as I grow older, that's one of the things that I've become slowly more aware and conscious about. The things that I eat, my lifestyle habits have slowly started to change, and I encourage you to do the same. So now's the part of the video. I will be shaving this off now, and that's, I don't know if anyone cares, but this will be done. Long time no see. Anyway, it's a little weird. I got a few cuts while I was shaving, I don't know if you can tell. But anyway, yeah, this is the end of the video. Remember to love and embrace your family, the people around you, and to live healthy lifestyles, because prevention is the best kind of treatment. So anyway, that is all. Until next time there'll be a normal vlog whenever I get a chance to it. But until then, see you.